Welcome to Life on the Rocks, your innovative entrepreneurship and motivational based show where we ask the real questions by tapping into the minds of successful, high-performing individuals. I'm going to predicate to you that luck is an illusion, disproving the myth that there's a such thing as an overnight success. Get ready and strap in 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming at you live from episode 63 of Life on the Rocks with your host, Connor Rocques. Today's featured guests in the hot seat are Mr. Anthony Lawley and Carlos Angelucci. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Very good, very good. Excited to be on your show and enjoying New York City. The weather's not bad, but tomorrow there's going to be a storm.
Oh, that's no fun. You never want to have a storm. For anybody who currently doesn't know Mr. Anthony Lawley or Carlos Angelucci, I mean, you guys have a wealth of experience, I want to say. So these gentlemen are both investors. They're real estate developers. They focus on multifamily real estate, but they obviously do a number more things. They are both best-selling authors. They have the book called The Heart of the Deal. Check out those hats they're wearing right now. They are franchise owners. They actually just sold a franchise. They have Rapid Realty, which is actually one of the biggest rental brokerages in New York City, guys. In New York City, one of the biggest places for real estate in the world. And I think this is huge just to point out. You became a millionaire, Anthony, at the age of 23 years old. You were an anomaly. The other feature I want to say is that these gentlemen both have actually been featured in a number of publications, but primarily you've been featured on CNN, Fox News, ABC, the New York Times. The first question I want to start this off with is, what got you gentlemen started in business?
Well, I started when I was very young. I was 19 years old. I decided to throw my hat into the real estate ring, and I never looked back. You know, it was a dream of mine to be financially independent, not only for myself, but also for my parents who came from humble beginnings.
Right.
So it's a well-documented story that goes back to when I was about 5 or 6 years old, when I realized that we were poor. We had a lot of love and caring in the family, but we didn't have a lot of money. So I wanted to change my family tree. And the first time I had an opportunity, when I was of age, I got into real estate. So at 19, I got my real estate license. At 21, I started Rapid Realty. And by 23, I was a multi-millionaire. And that's pretty much around the time that Carlos got on board. And we just skyrocketed from there.
How many different offices do you guys have or had you had with Rapid Realty?
We had one point grown the company to over 100 stores nationally. And then at one point it was like a solid 70 plus stores. We really grew it. I mean, it was at that point where we were almost going to take it international. And then we got offered a nice number and we got a nice exit.
I bet that's always the way to do. Get in, get out, right? Make it work. I want you to talk about your team. Some of the members of your team, over 100 people have a Rapid Realty tattoo. So that's obviously a huge culture. Talk about that for a second.
Well, you know, it was actually a story that went internationally viral, not only on the news, featured in over 2,000 international news televised programs, but also newspapers. Right. And it also went internet viral, which is something that, you know, only you could do with a sex tape. But yeah, over 105 people tattooed the logo on themselves. So it was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
I mean, that just shows you built such a strong team. How many people did you guys have on that
team? Here's a picture of one of the tattoos right there. It's in the book. It talks about it. People call it skinvertising, right? Because it's advertising on the skin. And it's just something that took on a life of its own. It actually, you know, the story is someone in an internet news publication that focuses on real estate was asking about what are some of the craziest marketing techniques and tactics that people have used to promote properties or their real estate brokerages? And I said, no one's got something like this. And so at that time, it was only like a few people that had gotten the company logo tattooed, and then a bunch did. And so we took some pictures and sent it in. We tweeted back to this publication, and then all of a sudden it went from there to the rest of the world kind of picking up the story.
It really shows the loyalty with your company. Obviously, people, you know, buying into your mission and everything like that. Talk about for a second the other part of that. So we're talking about branding and stuff like that. What made you gentlemen write the book, The Heart of the Deal? What got you into that? Like, and then obviously bringing it to a bestseller. Like, what were you seeing in the marketplace at the time to then go ahead and write the book?
Well, you know, when you look at some of the most successful entrepreneurs, Bill Gates, Mark Cuban, all the sharks on Shark Tank, Richard Branson, to even Steve Jobs, there isn't a single one of them that don't have a book. And, you
Right.
know, in this world, this information age of where you can only capture people's attention for like 15 seconds, you need something that's concrete. So we wanted something that was going to anchor our story and really be able to reference. You know, people develop movies and film movies based on books. So we said, why not have a book that actually speaks to our story historically? So we wanted this to kind of anchor who we are, where we were, and now we're continuing to write our story.
Absolutely. Talk about the title for a second. I like that it kind of plays off as something similar to Donald Trump. You know, the art of the deal. You're talking about the heart of the deal. Where did you come up with a topic like that? Talking about heart. Is that from your humble beginnings?
Well, I think that we take a different approach to business. You know, we support over 30 different charities and foundations. And so we take more of a heartfelt approach because the heart of every deal isn't money, it's people. And so our business has always been people-centric, making people entrepreneurs, making people, you know, teaching people how to fish so they can fish for themselves. So it was actually a collaboration between us and some good friends and long-term employees. We said, you know, why not play on words and really show people that there's a different way you can actually approach business, heartfelt.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's a huge point. Let's talk about for a second. I think it's interesting. I mean, a millionaire by the age of 23. You don't hear that often. I mean, you see it maybe on Facebook, and a lot of the time it's not real news. But how were you able to get to that point at such a young age?
Well, you take $1 million, you divide it by 365 days, and I think it's something like $2,700+ a day.
Right.
It's not that difficult, you know, but when you sprinkle in real estate, you sprinkle in New York City, and you sprinkle in determination, good leadership skills, right decisions, you can easily accomplish that goal. And that's a lot of what we talk about in the book and a lot about what we teach on stage and also what we're doing with some of our online coaching.
Right. No, I think that's huge. I think a great point on that too is that when you're going on stage and then you have a book, obviously at the end of it, there's so many speakers I see that they go out, have this great content, and then you want to go out there and you have to buy into their course. Why not have a book you can carry around? It's another great branding tool, I find.
Yes, it's a good branding tool, but also it's a memento. People want something that's from you, and this is probably one of the most inexpensive ways. I always say if you could download what's in our brain and put it into your brains, the old school way of doing it is reading. So in this book, it really talks about where we were headed, what our thought process was. And it also, the title says, you know, how to invest and negotiate like a real estate mogul. You know, you need to know negotiation skills, investment skills. If you want to be a mogul, I don't care what industry, it's not just real estate, it's business.
It's kind of like a how-to guide on how to get involved in different aspects of real estate from different perspectives too. So it's pretty good because what I like about it is that it touches on it looks at it from different angles. So it looks at it as if you want to get into real estate as a salesperson working at a brokerage, this book kind of gives you some tips on that. If you want to be the broker and run a real estate operation, if you want to be an investor, if you want to get into commercial, residential. So it goes into all the different angles.
No, I think that's actually great too. You need to kind of break it down for people. So I have an interesting concept for you for a second. So you guys know who Tai Lopez is probably in our industry, right?
What was that?
You know, so in our industry within personal development and entrepreneurship, you've obviously heard of Tai Lopez?
Title Vest.
Or Tai Lopez, like Tai
Oh,
Lopez.
Tai Lopez. Yes, of course. Great guy. Our book is actually inside Mentor Box, which is one of his companies. So it's pretty awesome. Great guy, and he does a lot of good online coaching and stuff like that.
100%. So the reason I wanted to bring him up, so on stage, Tai Lopez said that opposed to real estate, so everybody thinks real estate is the best investment you can ever make. So you look at places like McDonald's, they own the best real estate in the world. But Tai Lopez actually claims, he says actually the best investment you can make is in two things. So in your actual brand, so your personal brand and your website. Do you agree with that point, or do you see it on the other way, is that get into real estate as a best investment and a vehicle
It's different, completely different things. I mean, we do it all. I mean, you really have to do it all. Not everybody has a personal brand, right?
Yeah.
he's talking to most people, his audience, right? And the people he caters to are people that probably want to build a personal brand, which is a direction that we went in as well. But you can do it simultaneously.
Yeah, it's not one or the other. I mean, the reality is that what's a safer investment is real estate versus a personal brand. I mean, in this day and age, there's a lot of people with personal brands that have been tainted for one reason or another, you know?
And unless they're such an exceptional person, like, you know, you could have a personal brand, but what are you good at?
Right.
Just having a personal brand. I don't know. You know, you can hire experts to sort of coach you through and assist you in getting that brand up. But that's, you know, I'd rather own a building across the street if I don't, you know, at the same time while building a personal brand. It's important to have the personal brand.
Sure.
No, 100%. I think coming from you guys, being that you guys have a wealth of experience, how do you feel about, so we're talking about negotiation, even on the title of your book. What's some of your advice for younger people trying to negotiate deals to kind of get over that fear and ask for the price that they want? Like, what is some of your advice for that?
I think that you need to be educated on what your competition is charging. You need to be educated on what value add you give to whatever the consumer or customer you're trying to pitch. You need to also understand really what your competitors are doing. If you don't know what your competitors are doing, if you don't have a competitive edge, don't compete. Right. That's just a reality. And so a lot of times people are fixated on having so much self-belief and, you know, not having limiting beliefs. But the reality is that they need to check themselves too and understand what their limitations are and be straight up about it and work around it until you get really good.
Do you have any advice for anybody trying to get into real estate and let's say they don't have the capital or they don't have the money to be able to get in? Like, what's some advice?
Well, the good way to get into real estate is become a real estate agent, learn the ropes, make money commission based, because that's the only time you're going to be able to make unlimited income based on your performance. And so that's the goal. So if you want to get into real estate, start by working for a real estate company, doing sales and rentals and leasing of commercial properties, make some money there, use that money to put as a down payment, buy your first property. And I talk about it in my book. At 21, bought my first property, and how I got the money was by being a real estate agent at 19.
Right. Absolutely. No, I think that's a big point. Do you have any advice for, let's say, take New York City, one of the biggest markets in the world. How do you break through the noise of that market to become successful in like a mogul like yourself? Like how is someone starting out, let's say I was 21 years old, like what's some of your advice for those people that are trying to get into that market that is just heavily saturated?
There's no such thing, right? Let's take, for example, the music industry, right? Let's say you're a really, you know, successful artist, like, you know, one of our guys that works for us, he works with this new artist called 6ix9ine, Tekashi 6ix9ine. He's a real big artist, right? So the guy, you know, he has a couple songs. Now he's going on a world tour. So while he's on a world tour, there's new artists that are coming out because he's just promoting his old music to new audiences internationally. So there's room for somebody else to come, get a couple hit songs, and do their world tour. So same thing here. You know, there's opportunities for people to get into the marketplace as a salesperson, because if you're really good as a salesperson, you're going to therefore want to enjoy that wealth, enjoy your life, buy property, diversify, and then somebody else has got to fill that spot. So there's no such thing as it being oversaturated. There's a lot of people getting into the industry, not talented, not skilled enough, but that just gives more room for you.
Yeah, I mean, you always look for differentiators, right, in crowded markets. So like in a saturated business, it's difficult to crack it and be the best at it because there's someone that might have been there for a long time and has already been doing it. But the example you talked about earlier with real estate, and you said that McDonald's, right, they own a lot of prime properties. You know, if you think about it, the hamburger market, right, the burger restaurants and burger chains have been around forever, and it's been dominated by McDonald's, Wendy's, some of the other brands, Burger King. But Five Guys came along and they opened up everywhere and throughout the states. Other companies in the states like BurgerFi and Smash Burger and a bunch of boutique burger shops, I mean, they're opening and springing everywhere. And we're talking about a society that now is more health conscious too. But burger places are not going out of business, and that's a market that you would think about it, there's no room for a new franchise to come out, but yet almost every time I look, there's like a new one that's succeeding.
No, it's the one with the most persistence, the most vision.
Just don't be scared. You don't let that intimidate you. So if you're a new person coming into the real estate industry and you're concerned that you're coming into a big market that already has its own players, those players are busy. They take up everything else that they may not be doing. You know, there's so many things, so many ways to come in.
Yeah, people, when we launched our brand, there was stronger competitors, Century 21, Remax, Coldwell Banker, and people said, man, you're going to come up with another franchise concept. And we blew it out of the water. When you're in your own lane, there's no traffic.
I like that. No, that's actually a really good point. I think that's huge, especially for everyone else, because that always seems to be the opposition, the fear that people have. It's like, well, it's already saturated. Why should I try? And I mean, obviously, like yourselves and myself, it's like, well, no, you gotta go take a crack at it at least and feel it, get punched in the mouth a little bit and see what happens.
Yep.
I want to ask you a question. So being that we're talking about real estate, I think it's an important thing. I talk a lot about education with my network. How do you guys feel about the current education system? Like, if I wanted to try to do a deal with a gentleman like yourself, does it make a difference if I have a degree or not? To you, does that make a difference, or is it you want to see the hard work, the strategy? Like, does that make a difference?
Depends on what the situation is, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do a deal where you want to be our accountant, you better have a CPA. You better be a certified public accountant or something along those lines. It really depends on what it is. There's specialties, right? So if you're looking to do a real estate deal, it's not so important for us as we got this audience. 1 second.
I'll cut it out for you. No, I can cut it out. I'll edit it.
Wait, can we just hold on before you keep calling me? Thank you. So what I was saying was, so us, we look at the person. We've looked at many resumes over the years when we're recruiting people, bringing people into the organization, having them grow. It depends on, like, if I'm hiring a graphic designer and they went to school for it, it's probably better. But if that person might have a portfolio, I might come across someone who's done that work. They have a portfolio, and the portfolio speaks for itself. So the work that they put in, and some people have accomplished many things without actually having gone to school for it. So for us, it's less important than maybe in other industries. We like the idea of having a strategic mind. We like the idea of, sorry, I'm moving the phone around. We like the idea of having, someone that we can sort of coexist with, and if we're going to be working with them, that we can have good camaraderie, and those are things that kind of matter.
Yeah, and if you don't have a degree, you're then more than likely have a chip on your shoulder and more to prove. So you'll probably work even harder than the one with the degree.
It's true. No, absolutely. It's one of those things I see a lot of time in the market. It's like, is it worth it to go to college or go to university, right? That's always a question that comes up. But I mean, if you're going into real estate and you have a drive, I think you'd be a lot more successful rather than waste that time trying to go to an education or a facility, right? For 4 years. You know what I mean?
I like the education component is necessary in certain fields, and it's really necessary overall. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm a fan of vocational schools. Yeah. I think that trade schools that you can go to and go get a job as a plumber or something. I mean,
the thing is, school,
at least you're using it,
tells an employer how much discipline you have, how you can follow the rules and listen,
Right.
At least that's your resume. Hey, I could focus and concentrate enough to pass this class and get this score. Doesn't necessarily mean how good you're going to work, but at least there's something to go.
Oh, it lagged.
We froze?
Yeah, it froze there. Sorry about that. I'm not sure whose end.
Did we lose you?
I'm sorry. Can you still hear me? Yeah, your screen's frozen. Oh, there we go. You're back. I can edit this out too. No problem at all.
Okay, cool. He's just lowering the volume on the Trolls movie that's playing in the background.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
All right. So, So going back to what I was saying, that basically the degree at least lets the employer know that you can focus enough and concentrate enough to pass a goal and a task. and that's, you know, getting your diploma or passing a class.
Yeah, it matters.
It matters, you know. Other than that, it's just lip service. How is the person going to know you're any good if you're new to the workforce?
So true. Do you have any advice for people if they're trying to sell themselves, let's say to a company or corporation, and they don't have a degree? Like, how do you distinguish yourself? Do you have any advice for students or people in general if they were to interview with yourself?
Well, I mean, I think it's always good, charismatic, and find ways to do that. I think
Right.
when I meet a person, I remember people that we recently interviewed about a year, not recently, like about 18 months ago, we were going to an interview process to fill certain positions, mostly public relations related. So you needed a little bit of mentality, but some of the people that stood out to me the most, that I have them in mind for maybe future opportunities that may come up, are the ones that were a little bit more charismatic and that stood out during the interview process. I have no idea what school they went to. I don't remember. I know they went to school, but I just remember that they stood out to me. They were well prepared. They came into the interview. They had the resume done really nice, a digital form of the resume. They looked the part, weren't overly dressed. They were dressed in a way that was sort of, appropriate for the position they were applying for. And so some of that presentation goes a longer way than what's actually on the resume. Because I remember the presentation of them and the way they spoke and everything else more than I remember. I have no idea where they worked at this point. I just remember them as a personality.
No, I think that's a great point. I find, and again, I thought you guys actually made a very interesting point. You said there is no such thing as like a saturated market. You just have to find your kind of angle with it. I think that's interesting because I see a lot of students and just people in general wanting to give up because they think, oh, there's too many people. It's like I'm going to a university, we have 200 jobs for something. And then, you have over 10,000 applicants and stuff like that. It's kind of an interesting perspective, I find. Would you, do you have any advice? I know I talk a lot about students, but a lot of my network is students, young entrepreneurs, people trying to crack into the market. What's your best advice for somebody, to find their niche, to find something they're good at, like just in general to go in? Because you always hear these gurus and people say, you got to have a niche. Well, how do you find it? Just out of curiosity.
Well, you got to explore. You got to turn, bounce around, job surf, career surf. You may do a certain something in one company and do the same thing in another company, and it's the environment that makes you thrive. The leadership, the opportunity, the coworkers. So it may not be the industry, it just might be the environment that doesn't allow you to thrive. So don't give up on a specific industry. Try 2 or 3 different companies that do the same thing, and then try something else until you figure out what it is that you think you could do and get really good at. And, it depends. Some people, quality of life for them is, their work environment. For some people, if they were garbage men making $2 million a year throwing out the garbage, they'd be happy just doing that and taking the $2 million and enjoying life with their family. So you got to first figure out what's going to make you happy, what to you is quality of life, and then, build your career. You got to reverse engineer it.
Yeah, you can also find what you're good at life, because some people have no jobs or they have jobs they don't like, but they're good at something, right? And maybe find something that you could apply those skills to. Sometimes people look for the job first and then try to adjust to their environment. But if they focus on trying to find something that's in line with the things that they enjoy and they succeed at in life, like someone might be very personable. They might be very polite. They might have a good personality. That might be good for the retail industry, right? They might be great at managing a store, a team of people. They might be good at customer service. Sometimes you might want to go in that direction too, which is another form of reverse engineering a career choices. Sure. Looking at what you might do well.
Good at video games, become a gamer.
Totally, yeah. And you can in this day and age. I think that's actually really great advice for people. It's kind of getting clear on those goals and seeing, don't go try to become an accountant if you're not good at numbers. Right? Don't go into that environment. I want to transition now that we're talking about, we keep talking about students. Talk about the, right. I know you're big on philanthropy, giving back. You said you work with 30 plus or more charities. I mean, you guys are speaking in schools. You're doing a number of different things. Talk about the importance of giving back and, you know, not just being someone that's out there just for themselves, but the fulfillment you get from going out and doing stuff for others and building stuff that means more than yourself.
Well, we like to help the helpless, you know, and I think that, I don't know, it just coincidentally, the more we give, the more we get. So even if it's just like you're just doing it for business purposes, it just comes back to you tenfold. There isn't a foundation or charity that we're not involved in that for some reason or another, it just comes, it's like pay it forward. It just comes back to us tenfold through unique relationships, through different things. It's just an awesome experience, and to really be able to make a difference and change people's lives, you know, it helps you sleep good at night.
No, absolutely. How about you? Anything on that point, Carlos, that you wanted to say?
You know, we have been in a position to help people through the company that we own. So like one of the ways indirectly that we did this was offering opportunities to people that otherwise weren't getting hired as much or didn't have. See, our business in real estate, in the markets that we service, could be a little snooty, right? It could be a little bit, you know, people with their noses in the air a bit, you know, and we felt that we didn't want to be too stringent on our hiring policies because, you know, somebody might be young and just getting out of school or just getting out of high school even, and they might qualify to become a real estate salesperson, but are they really ready to take on customers that are spending that much money? Have they really been prepared? Maybe not, and not to someone else, but to us. We said, you know, this is a young guy who's going to hustle, who's going to put the hard work in, is going to have those type of characteristics which matter more, and he can learn the rest. And we gave opportunities across the board that way, and we also allowed people to become franchisees, which kind of allowed them to become the CEOs of their own brands, and that otherwise maybe didn't get those opportunities elsewhere. So that was one way that we actually were able to sort of implement that into our business. Was giving a chance to people that otherwise weren't getting hired by everyone else. And that's how we built a strong force and a unified sales team.
Did you ever find in your business, like sometimes maybe hiring some of the misfits and then being able to coach and work with them, it pushed them that much farther than the people that are sometimes you would say straight and narrow? Did you ever find that with some people, like the bad boys or girls like that, you bring in and coach them properly? Did you ever find that in your business?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. You know, the people that looked the part and were educated to the nines were the laziest. They felt the most, I guess they felt that they didn't have to work hard, you know. And so it was the people that, again, had the chip on their shoulder, more to prove, that actually produced more.
It's true. No, that's a really great point. How do you, so one of my last questions I want to ask you, how do you stay ahead of the competition? So with the shifting market, I mean, with AI coming into place, cryptocurrency, all these things, what do you guys do? Do you have any rituals or things to keep you ahead of the market and the competition so that if someone comes and tries to blindside?
Yeah, we like to keep our fingers on the pulse of the market. The problem is a lot of entrepreneurs are too busy inside their business instead of being on their business. They're too micromanaging of everything. They don't know what's going on in the outside world. They don't want to educate themselves, either because they're too busy or they don't want to, you know, have to shift their business model. And that's where you can run into the danger zone. So the idea is to allot some time to keep up with current events, to keep up with trade publications, to know what's going on with your competitors, go to trade shows, also think about diversification, what else you could add to your business, how you can implement other things, like you said, crypto and AI, how those things can affect your business, where your business is going to be at a year from now, 5 years from now. You don't want to be Blockbuster Video when Netflix is coming out. You don't want to be Toys R Us when you have Amazon and drop shipping. So, you know, you want to be able to know what's going on and not kind of stick your head in the sand and pray and hope for the best. You want to take action.
Right. No, I like that. That's actually a really great point, Anthony. One of the last questions I want to ask you, talk about the importance of getting out there. So you guys I seen you at a conference in Beverly Hills, getting on the big stage, obviously. What's your advice to people to to be able to get on stages like that? Obviously, you got to have a resume, but do you have any advice to get in big publications or on big stages, like for anyone watching this interview?
We started making millions of dollars before we did that. I see a lot of people put the cart before the horse. I think right now, what most people should do before they teach other people is actually be successful themselves in something. You know what I mean? Financially, they got to be able to have their act together, or at least headed in the right direction. It's great to speak things into existence. It's great to bite off more than you can chew. Like they say, an entrepreneur jumps off a cliff and figures out how to build the plane on the way down. And I get all of that. But sometimes you can spend so much time trying to teach other people how to be successful where it doesn't help you become successful. You got to actually kind of build in silence and work. The main thing is, if you want to be a leader that can monetize the students you lead. And turn that monetization into an empire. You know, one of the things that I did very young is I realized I had that leadership skill and the ability. I mean, think about it. It's not that difficult. You have people that create gangs, you know what I mean? Bad gangs that make people do heinous crimes for free, you know, and these are gang leaders. So you could do that in a positive way with entrepreneurialism and success. So, it feels good to be a leader, but it feels great to actually, there's a saying, right? You want to say, what is it? I am educated, or I is a millionaire, so you want to, focus on making money first.
Right. Absolutely. Because especially to invest in the causes and things you want to do, you got to have some type of money coming in.
Exactly.
Anthony, I got an important question for you. This is just from my own general, how is it being on a network like CNN? How do you get over, when you're going on there, you go live on a network like CNN, how do you get over the nerves so you can speak confidently, with certainty?
Well, when they call you because you're considered a national expert in that field.
Right.
And typically they give you a heads up as to what the topics are. Because we're in real estate, there's so many different topics that affect real estate: the economy, cryptocurrency, interest rates, the Federal Reserve, presidency, politics. So it goes back down to what I just said: knowing current events, understanding what's going on in the marketplace, foreseeing the future, being able to navigate. So when you have all those things, and naturally you're speaking in front of an audience, if you have a large organization, we had 1,100 people working for us at one point. And so we would speak on stage all the time to our own people, mentor, training, going around to all the offices. So you just have that natural ability. And when you're confident in what you know, and you don't get stage fright after a while. I guess the first time it was kind of, butterflies in the stomach. But after that, it's kind of fun.
No, absolutely. It's kind of like a high in itself. Yeah, you're the first guest on here that I've ever seen go on to such a big, powerful network like that. And, so they got that's a lot of people you'd be in front of.
Yeah, we've been on all of them. We love it.
I know. I love that.
Yeah.
Talk about, so I want one last question for you. This is just interesting. Talk about, the New York style hustle and how it's impacted you in comparison to, you go to places like Los Angeles, it's a lot more laid back, a lot of business happening there. Talk about the differences you've seen.
Well, we get to our goals faster. In some of these other markets, like you mentioned, LA, they're more lackadaisical about it. But LA has millionaires too.
Right.
Everybody has their way of doing things. It's half a dozen, one or the other. In LA, they enjoy their lives a lot.
Yeah, and you think about it, it's not so much the people that are not just the workers, the salespeople, the ones that are hustling up business that have a little bit more of a laid back attitude, but it's also generally the population. So that means they have less of an expectation when they're waiting for someone to hustle up that business for them. So it's kind of it's just the way the community is ran, so to speak. But there's a lot of New York, influence over there, and just like there's a lot of LA influence here. Today we're dressed like we're in LA because we got the hats on. We don't, we got the heart of the deal hats going. Usually we're in suits. New York is more of a suit kind of town, right?
Yeah.
LA is a little more laid back, but
we just hit the gym earlier, so
I was gonna say, I had to make sure I put my suit and my tie on for you gentlemen there. I saw you on stage before. I know you're always in your suit, all your photos.
We're always in the suits. We're always in the suits. So you caught us right in between workouts.
I always tell everybody suit up and show up, but I know you guys do. That's for sure. One of the last things I wanted to ask. So I'm talking about different real estate. Is there anybody that you guys look up to, or that have either passed away, or anybody that you really look up to as an influencer that you keep an eye on? Like, do you like Gary Vee? Is there anyone specific besides yourselves?
Oh, we love Gary Vee. We love all the guys that I'm sure you love too. Everyone has their niche. We like anybody that's on top. We like people that are current, and we like old school people. We love Tony Robbins. I think anybody, when you make it to a certain level, you know what it takes. So we all respect each other in this multi-million-dollar entrepreneur club, and we all know what it takes to get there. And so when you get there and you stay there and you maintain it, we just take our hats off to them. We love them.
Absolutely. So one of the last things, so so for my audience out there, I'm going to be putting links and stuff like that. Where can we find you on social media, Anthony? Where can we buy your book? It's obviously on Amazon. It's a bestseller.
It's a bestseller. It's in every bookstore. It's actually, what's Canada's bookstore? Indigo. It's in Indigo. It's everywhere, on every retail store, in the airport stores. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. Hudson Booksellers. But Instagram is what we really do. We love posting Instagram stories. So I have an Instagram. It's just my first and last name, Anthony Lolly. Carlos has one too. It's Angelucci_Los, L-O-S. But you'll find him on mine as well, because we're always together. It's a rarity that we're not. So yeah, everything Anthony Lolly, or AnthonyLolly.com, and Facebook Anthony Lolly. So you'll always find us.
That's awesome. That's honestly great. There's one last question I usually would like to throw in, but I think it's a little bit different with you. I usually ask people, if you can go back, to your 18-year-old, 19-year-old self, what would you tell them? But I mean, you became a millionaire at 23. So the question I don't think it would change too much on that.
No, we have no regrets. We love it. We really built the life. We designed it. We led it, and it actually turned out exactly the way we wanted, and then some. So now we're at the second stage where we're taking our careers to the next level, but really, really enjoying life more than ever. And so the only thing I would go back in time and say to myself is keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at, when you reflect on things, people ask sometimes what you could change, but if you changed anything, the only reason they're asking you that is because you've gotten to a certain point. You may not have gotten to that point if something else would have changed. If something would have went better earlier and you didn't make certain mistakes, you may not have even gotten there to begin with, So like for me, at the age of 17, a turning point for me was I was in a career course in high school that actually the instructor of the school of the course, which was the teacher, he pushed the students. It was a course to prepare you for like how to handle an interview, right? Or how to go on a job interview, that sort of thing. How to prepare your resume. And he was preaching retail, and I got into retail just because it was something that he said I should try. And little did I know that just that one decision of going into retail was gonna make me fall in love with sales. And if it wasn't for falling in love with sales, I would never have fallen in love with real estate, because I got into real estate sales. And if it wasn't for doing that, then I wouldn't have been where I'm at now and having done all the things that we've done together. So it's hard to change anything, or to say you would change something, because if you change it, it may be a different outcome.
Oh, I know. I think that's a great point. Honestly, gentlemen, I must say I have nothing but the most respect for both of you, especially in the biggest market in the world, New York City, dominating like that. That's huge. I want to say thank you. And for everybody else out there, I'm going to put some tags in there for the book, The Heart of the Deal. We'll make sure to promote this.
Here's the website, theheartofthedeal.com.
Right there. Easy to remember. I like that. I can't thank you enough for coming on my show. Seriously, I can't wait to shake your hands both in person. So
yes.
Thank you very much. I
thank you.
appreciate it.
Anytime.